A extreme example of Paris highlights the problems of traffic congestion for last kilometre delivery all around the world, and that includes Australia. It's a global logistical problem to be solved to help more than $650 billion worth of parcels to be shipped more efficiently around the world each and every year. It's an issue already causing problems on our roads right here in Australia.
There's the benefit for the cities and the residents that live in them. And so when you move from car to bike, you're creating greener, cleaner and more efficient cities. There's less congestion, less emissions, less noise pollution. It's a city that people want to live in. When you look at the economic benefit, clearly e-commerce creates jobs, delivery creates jobs, but it's also the last leg of a delivery is the most expensive part of delivery. 50% of the cost of sending something is in the last mile. And so if we can switch that from vans to bicycles, not only can we do it greener, but we can do it cheaper as well.
Another key benefit of embracing micro-mobility is reducing the amount of emissions from traditional sources of transport and helping countries move towards their net zero goals. The French government has been critical of our previous government over climate change. So the new government's commitment to greater climate action was welcomed by President Macron.
And the fact that Anthony Albanese agenda has now climate change at the top of its priority is also a sign that the relationship can be rebuilt. So I would say that the relationship, even if it knew hard time and harsh time at the end of last year, probably is in a good shape to be rebuilt and for both players to have a new start and a reset because it's a mutual interest for both Australia, both in the world, in Europe, but also in the Indo-Pacific region, to have a strong relationship for the future.
And as our population continues to grow, there needs to be a balance of these competing needs.
We're championing the use of greater, more safe-moving infrastructure, slower speeds, for example, policy leadership, making it easier to pick up and drop off goods, testing and scaling opportunities, innovating with business to see what works and then scaling it up. And then also looking at things like micro-logistics hubs. So there's a whole bunch of things in there which could make a real difference tomorrow.
So when we talk about micromobility, we're not talking about cars, vans or trucks. Rather, we're talking about low-profile, lightweight vehicles. So think bikes, e-bikes, scooters and cargo bikes. So I think in many ways Australia lags when you look at the use of micromobility in Australia, both for delivery but also for moving people. We don't do as well as some of our global counterparts, particularly when you contrast to cities like Paris, where they've invested in hundreds of kilometres of dedicated bike lanes, and the use of bicycles both to get around and deliver things is just part of the DNA of the city.
You only need to take a glance at our major cities to understand the traffic issues, exacerbated by our return to work in the office for the first time in several years. And Australia again can learn from our French allies and how policy changes can help a city function more smoothly.
So I think cities like Paris have proven what it can look like when you invest in micromobility infrastructure and policy. And so you just have to look around the streets and you can see Parisians cycling around on e-bikes, on e-scooters, you can see cargo bikes. And that's because they've dedicated infrastructure in the city to provide safety for cyclists and for pedestrians, and they've backed it up with long-term policy reform, such as the decision to remove cars transiting through Paris. So in the next 2 years, they're going to basically ban cars transiting through the centre of Paris. That'll take 50% of cars off the road, and then they can reuse that space again for infrastructure, for cycling, for living, for parks, and really making the city a nicer place to live.
Our alliances have served Australia well throughout our history, to grow, to innovate, to advance. And at this moment, we're in a position to harness those relationships to our advantage. We have an opportunity to ensure our nation's future prosperity.